It's one of the most important elections in the history of Indianapolis. Choosing the mayor for the next 4 years at a pivotal time for the city. Should the current mayor get a third term?
I don't dwell on those things that we've already achieved. I never have. Rather, all I can see are the things left undone.
Or be replaced by a former city county council member and businessman.
Our city is drifting under this administration, and it's not okay just to mark time. It is not okay just to go through the motions.
Indianapolis must confront huge questions about crime, the murder rate, public safety, jobs, health, and neighborhoods.
Today I stand before you to share another vision, one for economic growth.
One vision wants you to believe that the best way to go forward in Indianapolis is to go back to the good old days.
We have to get public safety right, or none of the other pieces can fall into place.
You have my commitment that I'll be damned if I'm going to let someone drag us back into the past.
Tonight, Indiana's best political team takes your questions directly to Joe Hogsett and Jefferson Shreve to get the answers you demand before casting your ballot. From Wish TV, your exclusive home for Indiana's best political coverage, this is a special edition of All Indiana Politics, the Indianapolis mayoral debate.
And good evening, and thank you for joining us for this News 8 special. We are proud to host this debate in the Indianapolis mayoral race.
It's the first live 1-hour televised debate in this race, and the first one in a mayoral race in nearly 20 years. We want to welcome in the two candidates, Democrat Joe Hogsett, who is hoping to win his third term in office, and Republican Jefferson Shreve, a businessman who has previously served on the city county council.
And before we begin tonight, let's give you a couple of the ground rules that both candidates have agreed to. There will be no opening statements. Each candidate will have 60 seconds to answer a question.
They may request a 30-second rebuttal. We may also ask follow-up questions with 30-second answers. And to end the debate, each candidate will have up to 90 seconds for a closing statement.
And with that, gentlemen, let's begin tonight by talking crime and public safety. It was the #1 topic in questions submitted by our viewers. For the past 3 years, we've heard about record homicide rates in the city, growing fears about crime in neighborhoods, and watch the downtown riots in 2020. So let's start here. Do you believe in Indianapolis that it's a safe city? Do you believe that downtown is safe? By virtue of a coin flip, Mr. Hogsett, you start us off tonight. 60 seconds, sir.
Well, I certainly believe that downtown is the safest neighborhood in all of Indianapolis. Statistics and data show that to be the case. We try to desperately make all of our neighborhoods as safe, but we have a safe downtown, and generally speaking, we have a safe city. Now, the truth is we have a problem with guns, and everybody has guns. The permitless carry that was passed by the Indiana General Assembly has been particularly difficult for the city of Indianapolis. There are more guns in our city than there are people. And until and unless we start meaningfully addressing those issues, we're going to continue to have unfortunate incidents of gun violence. And gun violence brings with it perception problems. And that's why we need to change the direction and make a real difference in the gun availability of guns.
All right, Mr. Shreve, 60 seconds to you. Your response.
Too much of our downtown is not safe, or does not feel safe, does not feel inviting to people from our city who share in the common neighborhood that we call downtown, whether they come from Pike Township or Perry Township or Lawrence Township. Perception is reality, but that perception is evidenced in the reality of too much crime, whether it be petty crime, violent crime in our urban core. Statistically, the IMPD downtown district is by far the smallest geographically, and so it's distorting to say that it is our safest district from a policing standpoint. But it certainly has a heavy allocation of resources. Okay. We have a safety problem in downtown, and it deters people from from enjoying the common core, the common neighborhood of our city.
Thank you. You're out of time. Mr. Mayor, would you like to rebut?
I'd simply say that downtown is extraordinarily safe, regardless of its geographic circumference. And it's important to know that we are putting more resources into public safety, $150 million over 3 years. And I think that the statistics show that crime is down across the board, not just in murders, but also in burglaries, robberies, non-fatal shootings, and the like.
30 seconds to you, Mr. Shreve. Rebuttal.
Nonviolent crimes, as reported, are down because we have too few officers on our force. We're more than 320 officers short. And so the IMPD has had to make necessary cutbacks. And, for example, they don't pursue auto theft investigations. The ability to police, the broken window theory of policing is a reality in Indianapolis. And so reports of crime on these fronts is underreported.
Okay. Gentlemen, thank you. Both of you have talked about getting more IMPD officers on the force and on the streets to help address crime. So how exactly do you plan to hire more officers when nearly every major city in the country has the same problem? Mr. Shreve.
This is a problem shared by other cities, but Indianapolis acutely. We have lost 880 officers to other departments from the IMPD, either to early retirements, but oftentimes they just go to departments where they feel better led, better supported and backed. And so this is a leadership deficit challenge, not a fiscal challenge, because these positions are funded and authorized by our city council that I served upon. Mechanically, I will work to increase the age at which someone can go into the policing profession to age 40 rather than 35. But we must make this department a point of pride on which to serve in the capital city, the only first-class city of Indianapolis, and it starts with leadership of that department.
Mr. Shreve, thank you. Mr. Hogsett, your response.
Well, the truth is, over the last 8 years, we have hired over 700 officers. In fact, 45% of IMPD officers who are working for IMPD today were hired by my administration. I'm proud of that. Now, while it would be great to have additional officers, and that's the efforts that we are making, when Jefferson mentions that we're 300 officers below where we'd like to be, what he doesn't mention is we're 300 officers that I authorized and fully funded. These are positions that wouldn't be there but for me. And the truth is also, in Jefferson's time on the council, Mayor Ballard went 2 years without hiring a single officer. One of those years, Jefferson was on the council and voted for his budget, hiring no officers at all.
Mr. Shreve, would you like to rebut?
I would.
30 seconds. Go ahead.
We've had benefit of some ARPA money for an additional 100 officers, which we've not been able to take advantage of for lack of hiring, for lack of the leadership with which to hire those people. I served on the IMPD Staffing Commission, and I did support the budgets of prior administrations, including this mayor's, to provide the resources to staff these positions. And we have significantly increased the starting rates for first-year patrolmen, but still not been effective in hiring them.
Mr. Mayor, you get 30 more seconds to respond, then we'll move on to the next question. Go ahead, sir.
Well, the truth is that 300 additional officers and positions have been fully funded. When I first ran for office, I proposed adding 150 officers, and the press corps wanted to know where I was going to get the money. Well, now here we are 8 years later. We have 300 positions that are fully funded. We just are having difficulty, like the rest of the country, the rest of the urban areas, in finding people who want to be police officers. But we have raised the first-year and second-year pay, and will continue to do so.
All right, gentlemen, for many communities in our city, simply putting more officers on the street does not address the issue of how officers do their jobs. What do you say to those communities, especially communities of color who worry about over-policing in certain neighborhoods? I'll start with you, Mayor Hogsett.
Yeah, I think the accountability of IMPD officers and the department as a whole is very important. That's why we are the first administration who has provided body cams for every IMPD officer. In the 2024 operating budget, we're going to be giving them dash cams so that their actions can be monitored and held accountable where that's appropriate. We're the administration who introduced a use of force policy. We're the administration who brought civilian majority use of force board. We're the administration that brought civilian majority general orders committee. So I think in the area of accountability and transparency, our record is clear and distinct.
All right, Mr. Shreve, how would you like to respond?
All communities in Indianapolis want to be safe and live in a civil community. None want to be over-policed, but minority communities do want to be safe and protected. And this administration has been, in my view, slow to adopt the technology that the mayor launched. We were one of the last departments to adopt body cameras. I served on the Body Camera Commission 8 years ago. We were very slow to roll that out. We have dash cameras on 25 squad cars today. Yes, we have money in the budget for next year to get 750 cameras in, but we trail from an innovation and the implementation of technology in this department under the Hogsett administration. And police officers are hungry for that technology.
Now, we've also heard the complaint for the past couple of years about what critics call a revolving door in the Marion County criminal justice system. Criminals arrested only to be quickly released and commit other crimes. We've even heard that criticism recently from Indiana State Police Superintendent Doug Carter. Is that a fair criticism? What changes, if any, do you want to see made in the Marion County judicial system? And I'll start with you, Mr. Shreve.
The criticism is very fair, and I have thoroughly agreed with Superintendent Carter in his call for a complete review of the criminal justice ecosystem, if you will, in Marion County. While the mayor directly controls the funding and the staffing and budget for the IMPD, he's got to work with an independently elected prosecutor, members of the judiciary, and the sheriff's department. And the system, the ecosystem, is not working, as Superintendent Carter has pointed out. If elected mayor, I will use this office, I will use my voice, the bully pulpit, to advocate for a working criminal justice system that will close that revolving door to take the violent serial offenders off of the streets of Indianapolis.
And I will direct the same question to you, Mr. Hogsett.
Well, I have known Doug Carter for many years and think the world of him, and I'm always open to his positions and his experience, and this is no different. The truth is that is why, in no small measure, because I think we do need added enforcement, why, as part of my criminal justice plan, has been to add 3 additional special assistant United States attorneys to the United States Attorney's Office, working with the United States Attorney in pursuit of violent crime, and particularly gun violence, here in Marion County. I think that because the federal prosecutor has so many more tools at his or her availability, I think that will make a profound difference in the criminal justice system here in Marion County.
You know, another key part of the discussion on crime, gentlemen, here in Indianapolis is the prevalence of guns in the city. And state lawmakers eliminated Indiana's requirement for licenses to carry a handgun. Do you believe permitless carry of handguns has made the crime situation better or worse here in Indianapolis? Mr. Mayor, your turn, sir. 60 seconds.
Well, there's absolutely no question, and I think there's uniform agreement that permitless carry has been disastrous, particularly for Indianapolis, where no one needs a permit. I would go so far, and the City County Council has agreed with me, that we need to repeal concealed carry as well. And so permitless carry has done really nothing more than put guns in the hands of the people who have absolutely no business possessing a handgun or any other type of weapon of that nature. And I want to be clear about that, because responsible gun owners have nothing to fear. It is those who are misusing the availability of guns that I think we need to focus our attention on. So if the legislature would permit it, I think that their preemption in this area needs to be repealed, and we already have the ordinance on the books.
Mr. Shreve, 60 seconds to you, same question.
Of course, that ordinance has no weight of law. It is toothless, and it was introduced 10 days after the General Assembly adjourned a long session. In my view, a little too late, late in the second term of an administration, if it truly cared about this. I believe in the lawful right of citizens to possess a handgun. Were I a legislator, which I am not, I would have been compelled by the testimony of Superintendent Doug Carter and our IMPD chief, who advocated for keeping the permitting requirements for concealed carry of weapons in place. And in the true and proper order of things, I would advocate for the reinstatement of that permitting requirement for concealed carry of weapons as part of my legislative package that I would take before the General Assembly at the start of the session, not after it had adjourned.
Yeah,
go ahead, Mr. 30 seconds, sir.
Let me just clarify one thing. Jefferson has criticized me in terms of the late in the second term before I said anything about permitless carry. What he doesn't tell you is permitless carry was not the law until just a year ago. So I think that that certainly needs to be known, because if he's going to suggest that I was doing nothing for 7 years, well, in no small measure, it's because there was no such thing as permitless carry.
Mr. Shreve, you have 30 seconds to rebuttal, if you would like it.
Well, this didn't sneak up on us. This had been advocated for and was coming down the pike at the General Assembly for some years. And this administration certainly had the opportunity to put that at the top of its legislative advocacy package at the start of the long session rather than 10 days after it adjourned.
Okay, gentlemen, we mentioned the downtown riots earlier. It was obviously a key moment of the past 4 years. An independent review blamed, among other things, a lack of planning, coordination, and communication by IMPD and the city. It also found police actions escalated the tensions that we saw that weekend in 2020. There have also been lingering questions about your role, Mr. Hogsett, in that weekend's response. So, Mr. Hogsett, we'll go to you on this one again. Let's ask this. Do you agree with the report findings that there was a lack of planning, coordination, and communication? And where were you on the night of the riots?
Well, first of all, the question about the report, I embraced it because I put the committee together. Deborah Daniels and former Justice Myra Selby and Sean Huddleston, the president of Martin University, did a very thorough job. My office fully participated. And in answer to your second question, Phil, I was working from my home. I was in constant contact with my representatives, with IMPD. After things started to dissipate that evening, I got about 2 or 3 hours of rest and got up at 4 o'clock the next day, worked the rest of the weekend, meeting with organizers of the protests, and ultimately issued the order to have the protests ended, and that was effective. It was George Floyd changed the world, not just Indianapolis. George Floyd and his death changed the world. And I'm glad to say that we've had 300 protests since then without incident.
Okay. Mr. Shreve, 60 seconds to you, sir.
Well, that all sounds very commendable. It just doesn't sound consistent with all accounts that I have heard from others that were very much on the scene and wrestling with that situation, many of which members of the IMPD and the 911 staffing center and the governor's office. We had a terrific mess on our hands, and the mayor wasn't on the scene. I don't know if he was just working from home. I can tell you that a Mayor Shreve would have been on the scene, whether in an emergency command center or at least on the 25th floor of the city-county building, because that's how you lead.
Mr. Hogsett, I'm sure you would like your 30-second rebuttal.
Well, the fact is that I was in constant communication with both IMPD command staff as well as my own staff who were at the emergency command center. And Jefferson may be able to allege that he would have been on site. I'm not altogether sure what either he or I could have done in terms of wading out into the crowd. I don't think that would have been responsible. But in any event, I was in touch and listening to everything that was going on and giving direction accordingly.
Mr. Shreve, would you like your 30 seconds?
Yes, thank you. Our police officers are trained to protect people and property. And they will tell you to a T that they were ordered to stand aside, to let it rip. And that was just unacceptable. It was damaging to the morale of the members of our IMPD that has been scarring and left long-term effects on the makeup of our force, and I'm certain that has driven some members from our force to other departments.
All right. Thank you so much, gentlemen. Now, parts of downtown have struggled to recover from the pandemic. Many downtown offices remain empty for remote work, and many of the businesses have faced difficulties. What needs to be done to fully revive downtown? I'll start with you, Mr. Shreve.
The patterns in which people work today have changed, will change. They will not go back to the fully staffed offices that we might have enjoyed when I began my work at the corner of Illinois and Ohio Street 30-odd years ago. And we have to accept that reality. We're not going to tax the citizens of Marion County to incent employers to try to get people to work at desks 5 days a week when there are other ways in which we work. We've got to be proactive and creative in repurposing spaces that we have downtown to make it attractive to live increasingly, as well as work, shop, and play in our downtown core.
And I'll ask you the same question, Mr. Hogsett.
Yeah, I think that one of the most important things that we need to keep in mind is the world has changed, and the 5-day work week with commuters coming in from around probably will never return to its pre-pandemic existence. But here's the good news: 25,000 new residents have now called downtown home. The Downtown Resiliency Strategy was launched by Downtown Indy as the result of $3.5 million that the city gave it. So our recovery is going to be, and by the way, it's important to underscore that the city was a leader in encouraging people to return to work downtown. And I am sure that that is now going to be continuing. And it's that kind of leadership that will encourage people to return downtown. Residential and work experience, that's what's going to revive our city.
Mr. Shreve, would you like to offer up a rebuttal at this time?
Well, I would append to that and say that people have to feel safe in living and working and playing downtown. And so we have to address that broken part of our foundation if we are going to be successful at growing our downtown neighborhoods. We do have about a third of our core that is growing in that fashion, but too much of it is not. And at the root of that obstacle, that impediment, are feelings of a lack of safety that our citizens wrestle with.
Mr. Hogsett, you have 30 seconds if you'd like to issue your rebuttal.
Yeah, I would simply underscore that the people that are living downtown are coming downtown to live because it is safe. And you don't hear complaints from people who live downtown because they know it's safe. Where you hear the complaints, and this is who Jefferson is listening to, are people who don't even live in Marion County. They live in the contiguous counties. Now, I want them to return to downtown for a wide variety of different reasons, not the least of which spending money. But the people who live downtown will tell you they feel safe.
Gentlemen, the city has experimented with Spark on the Circle, closing down part of the circle to traffic and hosting what amounts to a green space. Mr. Hogsett, should that continue in 2024, and should the entire circle be closed to traffic?
Well, I think that closing a quarter of the circle is a good pilot to view, and that will be ended, I think, in early to mid-November, and we'll just see what the statistics are. I think it has been enormously popular. Anytime you provide public space in the downtown area, I think you're going to encourage people to return downtown. And it's not just Spark. I mean, I'm very proud of the Bicentennial Plaza that is now opened up and will be part of our another public space. The repurposing and the revitalization of Georgia Street, I think, will have a profound impact on people having fun and playing and going to restaurants and returning to our music venues. All of these things combined to one another are part of the downtown resiliency strategy, and I think that they are key to the growth and the revitalization of our downtown in the post-pandemic era.
Mr. Shreve, 60 seconds, your response.
I think experimentation with novel programs is good, healthy, and just fine. And what we're doing with Spark was an interesting experiment. What concerns me about the notion of Spark is the mayor's characterization as a potential pilot, a precursor to closure of Monument Circle to vehicular traffic. It's proved difficult to close 1/4 of the circle and not materially affect movement around the whole of the circle. And I definitely would not be in favor of the closure of Monument Circle to vehicular traffic. It ought to be safe for both bicyclists, pedestrians, and vehicles, and reopened once this novel experiment has concluded.
Okay, gentlemen, good conversation. Thank you very much. We're going to take a quick break. We have much more ahead in the next 30 minutes, including housing here in Indianapolis. You're watching our All Indiana Politics special, the Indianapolis mayoral debate.
The home of Indiana's best political team. Wish TV. We are local.